Professor Linda Doyle, it is wonderful to have you here with us today. I want to start by congratulating you on becoming Provost-elect of Trinity. It's incredible for the rest of us looking in from the outside, I must say. I mean, you're the first, it's the elephant in the room, you're the first woman Provost of Trinity in 430 years. It's quite remarkable. I wouldn't mind asking you, why did it take so long? But above all, I'd really like to ask you what it means to you. I know for us on the outside, it means that we have an incredible role model in place that hopefully, you know, researchers, lecturers, students can look up to and think, you know, maybe I can do that someday. Maybe I can lead a world-class university. I'd love to know your own thoughts on that.
Thank you, Anna, for such nice words. I suppose, well, I'm really delighted and totally honoured, and I still can't quite believe it, and I find myself pinching myself, and I feel completely excited, and I feel full of trepidation, and I kind of hope I can live up to everything. So it's just amazing to be here. And it's funny, people talk about the historic moment, and sometimes if you're sitting in it, you can't quite see that yourself. But one of the things I did say on the day I did get elected was, you know, this needs to be a normal thing. It needs to be not something that people point out. And, you know, you know yourself, because we've known each other a long time. I came from an engineering background, you know, and, you know, it just needs to be nobody questioning or thinking why anyone, men, women, people from all sorts of backgrounds, shouldn't be able to aspire and be what they want to be.
Yeah. But there's no doubt about it that for the minorities, it's going to be somebody else to look up to, and I think that's really, really splendid. So I just wanted to get that out of the way because I think it's hugely important and hugely significant. I suppose at Future Human, we're all about looking at the future of everything and the future of the planet, the future of academia, the future of research, and how it's going to save us all, I do hope. I know you said in your manifesto, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was Imagine Trinity, and the idea was to imagine the future of Trinity and what Trinity could look like in 30 years or in 2030.
Well, certainly at least at the end of my my 10-year time.
Tell me a little bit more about that and kind of your vision for the future of Trinity and the place you're going to have in it.
Okay, so yes, you're right. The manifesto was called Imagine Trinity, and you know, for people who don't know, it's quite unusual that we have an election process to elect the provost. And I suppose there's pros and cons to it, but one of the great pros to it is that, you know, you can take a breath and think about the university you work in and what you want it to be, what you want it to stand for, you know, where you want it to go. And I think that's one of the greatest things about the election. And so I suppose what I was saying is imagine where we want to be in 10 years' time and just, you know, and we can get there. And you might be interested to know manifestos in academia are very unlike maybe manifestos that pop through your door during election time, and people like lots and lots of detail and lots of kind of, I suppose, analysis. But if I were to boil it down, I suppose there's a lot of talented and capable staff and students in Trinity. And for me, the future is about, you know, Trinity being the absolute very best place it can be to work and to study in, so we can make the biggest and boldest impact on the world. And I mean, that's nothing magical, but that's really what it manifests itself as. And having the conditions to be the best we can be, for me, is about, you know, giving voice to the diverse people that are in Trinity. It's about inclusivity. It's about making sure that that diversity increases. And it's also about the things that you would expect, like ensuring that we have the right funding to support ourselves, but you know, allowing talent to flourish, because there's so many brilliant ideas there. And it's about just allowing them to come out, you know, and be the best they can be.
Yeah, I love that. And I know you, you know, in that context, and you mentioned it at the beginning there, but you come from a background in engineering, but also the arts, and you've always had a major interest, and you've spoken at our events about that, what I call interdisciplinarity, but that mixing of talents, that it's not always in silos. And I'd love to know, is that something you're bringing to the leadership of Trinity as well, or is that in your plans?
Absolutely, and I would go as far to say the events that you've had in the past, like Inspire Fest, have inspired me and help me along my way. So you are right. I work across engineering and the arts, in particular with visual artists and creative arts practices. And I'd go as, you know, I don't think I'm exaggerating in saying part of the reason I was able to legitimately put my name forward, you know, for the election is because of having that mixed and diverse background. And you know yourself that people think differently, there's different vocabulary, there's different ways of solution finding, there's different values and different things that matter. And I think having those perspectives especially are important when you're looking to lead a comprehensive university, a university that has all the different disciplines in it. And it's, you know, I speak about this a lot. It's really important to me that the value of different disciplines, different ways of knowledge making are taken seriously, and we don't, you know, I suppose, give precedence to one over the other.
Yeah, absolutely, it's crucial. And I know, you know, in the as you say, it was quite detailed, the manifesto. It was wonderful and very...
I'm very impressed that you actually looked at it and read it. I wonder if this is a sign of COVID, that people had nothing to do and they paid attention.
So much spare time, it's amazing. Yeah. No, but it was wonderful to read it, and much of it didn't surprise me because I know you a long time, but I thought it was a marvellous manifesto, and if you could do half of what you hope to do, I think Trinity is going to be a much better place. I love the fact, and again was not surprised by it, that you mentioned that you want the university to be a climate first university. And again, I'd love to hear a little bit more about that and how does one do that, because it was probably never so timely as now.
And I have to say, you know, that really was a kind of grassroots movement that I could see for myself. So I suppose if I were to sum it up, a lot of staff and students in Trinity, you know, are not really happy with the steps that we're taking to address things to do with biodiversity and climate change. And I think, you know, there's a genuine realization that more needs to be done. It needs to be taken more seriously, and continuing as we are won't work. So I was really, I suppose, in that sense, that is part of the manifesto, because it was inspired from all of the people around me who are much greater experts and really know what they're talking about. And I think people in Trinity are very much interested in this, both in how we live our lives in Trinity, you know, how we do our teaching, how we do our research, but also in the research that we do to change the world around us. So, you know, I'm going to do, we're going to have our first Vice President for Biodiversity and Climate Action. So you've heard it here first. You know, it's not just going to be about the symbolism of that and the role model of that. It's also going to be about deeper, more practical actions on the ground in what we do, you know. And things like COVID has allowed us to rethink, as you know yourself, about travel and behaviours and how we can change our own behaviours. But there's also really significant things we can do. And I'm very interested, for example, in how we financially report, how you take natural capital, how you take biodiversity into account, and you move to the kind of new economic models that people talk about a lot now as well.
Fantastic. You touched on it there, but and I didn't want to spend the whole interview talking about it, but we have to mention COVID. You know, I'm really interested. I mean, the challenges are obvious about, you know, getting everybody back on campus and all the rest of it, and you might talk to me a little bit about that. But I'm also, and again you touched on it there, but the opportunities maybe, or maybe the learnings that we've all taken from it and how it might feed into the future of Trinity.
So I suppose COVID's interesting is probably the wrong word for COVID. And we were just saying earlier ourselves, I think, how tired everybody is. And I can see, you know, I mean, a big thing for us is the well-being of the staff and students, and we will have students, you know, starting university whose kind of, you know, 5th and 6th years were significantly disrupted. You know, we will have students going into 2nd and 3rd year who've had, you know, really disrupted experiences, and we all know that your experience of college, only a small amount is to do with being in the lecture theatre, and the rest is so much more. I think, yeah, you're right. There's you know, a lot of what we're going to be facing into at the moment is very much about getting back on track. But weirdly for me, COVID has kind of reinforced two things. So first of all, it's reinforced the importance of space and place. You know, in one sense, some people kind of said, oh, we can do everything virtual. But I think being in a place, having a relationship with that, feeling like it's part of of home for you is really, really important. And for me, that means the centre of gravity of Trinity is also always going to be this physical space that people come to. And I don't know whether you've noticed it yourself, but I've seen some companies comment on it, that innovation has dropped. I don't know whether Silicon Republic would have noticed that too, but it's kind of interesting that you need to physically, the kind of embodied presence, the situated knowledge needs to, yeah, it does, yeah. So I think in one sense COVID has reinforced that. On the other sense, we, like many other organisations, can also see the benefit of some things being virtual, about some meetings being easier to get to, about it, being able to have contacts right around the world, being more global, while at the same time staying in place. So the future for me will undoubtedly have a centre of gravity that's the kind of physical presence in Trinity, but continue to be enhanced by that virtual world as well.
Yeah. I mean, I can't talk to you and not ask you about funding. I mean, many people in Ireland would say that the third and fourth level sectors have been underfunded for years now. I mean, we did have a recession and we probably never recovered from that to some extent when it comes to funding, but big challenge for you. What are you thinking, and what are the plans, and how do you sort that, and how do you get funding into Trinity?
You're right, it's a very big challenge, and just like any other organisation, we also have financial implications of COVID as well, on top of the normal situation. So I suppose I really do believe in the public university. I do think it is an important part of the democratic fabric of it. Strong independent institutions, strong independent critical institutions are a really important part of the democratic fabric of the country. The CSELS report, which you may be familiar with, did a very good job of, I suppose, delineating that the deficit, the need for greater investment in the sector. And the government actually at the moment are kind of re-reviewing that. And in fact, I actually think the Minister for Further and Higher Education made a comment to the Joint Oireachtas Committee on Education recently about the need for sustainable funding and the imperative to do that quickly. So I was really, really glad to hear that. So part of the answer to your question is that. I think we need to work as a sector, keep the pressure on, and, I suppose explain to people, as you know, before I worked in the research area, and I always said you can never explain enough why research is important, and I think kind of it's somewhat similar. I think it's constantly on us to ensure that people know the value of education of third and fourth level. And I don't know whether you agree, but to me, the pandemic was an amazing way of showcasing that value. We saw people go back to the front line. We shared equipment. We gave PPE. We helped with testing. Lots of experts you're probably familiar with on the TV all the time. Academics from right across the universities were on all of the major committees that helped steer Ireland through it. There was kind of huge international networking, using our own networks internationally to bring, the information we needed in. So to me, there was a fantastic example of a system that could spring into action, to help the state in a way that needed and should be helped. So I think that to me is a great example of why it's worth investing.
Yeah, and I suppose you'd hope as well, wouldn't you, that, I mean, even the vaccine and the fact that it came out of deep research that's been going on for years. I mean, mRNA was there. Exactly. I mean, hopefully we've educated even more people as to the importance of those years of research, that not everything can be commercialized quickly.
And in fact, it's the years of research that you mentioned that allowed the speed at the end, exactly, yeah.
So I'm hoping that will open people's minds a little bit further as well. It would be amazing. There's so much I could ask you, but I know you're a busy woman. I would like to end by asking you a little bit about leadership and your style of leadership. I know I've heard you say it and I loved it, was that leadership being, and I hope I get this right, but leadership being about service rather than power. And that says it all to me. But will you explain that to me and tell me a little bit about how you plan to lead and what your style will be?
Thank you. I'm glad you like that phrase. So when you put yourself forward, you have to think about what does leadership mean to you. And as you just said, for me, it's about service and service to the Trinity community, our staff, our students, our wider community, and the country. I really do see it like that. And I say that because I suppose I believe in a certain culture of leadership. So it's one that's about, you know, kind of using our collective talent, working together. The way we were talking earlier about, you know, the different disciplines, it's about the coming together of minds. It's about not always being right. It's about welcoming and encouraging critical, you know, feedback. You know, and it's about, I suppose, yeah, that to me, I suppose, is the essence of what the culture is. And, you know, there are days when I kind of think, oh my God, but I also think, oh my God, there's just amazing people that I can lean on. Of course, the buck stops with me, but why wouldn't I kind of, you know, work with the talent that's around me, luckily, and, you know, do greater things with that.
Well, listen, I know everybody at Silicon Republic of Future Human wishes you the very best of luck. It's just amazing. It's wonderful. And we've followed your career for years and we just think you deserve it and really look forward to seeing what you do at Trinity.
I know we're in fear of turning into a mutual admiration society, but the feeling is entirely mutual, and I mean it when I say InspireFest and Future Human and all that you do for me has been really inspiring and opened my mind to lots of things, and you know, so I have lots to thank you for, Anne, so thank you.
Well, look, really appreciate it. Thanks a million, and thanks so much for taking the time at a really busy time for you. Thank you, Linda.